The thing to know about my grandmother is she's super old. She spends most of her days sleeping on the couch, even though she will never call it sleeping. She says she's resting her eyes.
I do exactly the same thing every day. I get up in the morning, I have my breakfast, I have a shower, and after my shower, I go lay down on my couch and watch my stories for the rest of the day. Then I have my lunch, and then I have my dinner. My name is Phyllis, Philomena Sangetti. I'm Italian, and I'm 98 years old.
She's got a report to do on you and me and the family.
Why? Why can't she do my show?
Because she's recording you, Mom. She's doing work. She's working for school. So go ahead, I'm gonna give you a shower.
All right, come on.
All right, let's go. Thanks, you got my sexy legs, see?
So just to give you a little background, my grandmother lived in Bensonhurst. I lived there too, before moving upstate, that is. You see, Bensonhurst was pretty much the Italian version of Chinatown. Bakeries on every corner, families took over entire blocks. You were surrounded by your people. That's where my grandmother started her family.
First of all, I had two girlfriends. Well, not Millie too much, but Laura with her daughter. When she heard my daughter was going with a black guy, she says, "Oh my God, Phyllis, you accepting that?" I said, "Nothing, I'm accepting it." I said, "But what am I going to do?" Then later on, we discovered that her daughter was going with a black guy and married a black guy. Well, then, we didn't probably say too much about it, but we both didn't like the idea.
I also noticed this heavy emphasis on living happily ever after. My grandma would say pretty horrible things, but then follow them up with a quick, "Well, we lived happily ever after," as a way to completely negate the original hate that existed. Now, when I asked my grandma why she didn't like the idea of my mom being with the black man, she does everything in her power to avoid giving me the answer I'm looking for. Something along the lines of, black men were no good, or black men were dangerous, an explanation at least. I kept asking her, what was so wrong about being black? But she never really had an answer. I don't know if it was because she's defensive about the topic and doesn't want me making her out to be a racist old grandma, or if she really doesn't see it as something that needs reasoning. In her eyes, not wanting her daughter with a black man wasn't racist. It's just the way things were. She also wanted to make it clear that she never hated anyone for being black or even gay. She claimed to be friends with minorities. It was almost as if her having these friends was evidence alone that she wasn't the person she didn't want to be. My mom didn't believe her, though.
But I'm glad to hear that you had black friends. That's so interesting. Back in the day, I didn't even know a black person until I went to high school.
As I continued on this discussion with my grandma, it seemed that although her love for her family and her son-in-law was real, it almost felt like she was saying exactly what she thought she should say.
I should have never judged him the way I did until I got to know him. When I got to know him, I accepted him. He's wonderful. And that's all.
But when we went on to talk about other things in society, specifically on television, that's pretty much her whole world, things aside from race, say sexuality, she seemed to be doing the same thing again, judging people based off of a label, and she was doing it without even realizing.
I don't care too much. When I see a guy kissing a guy on television, I think it's disgusting. A girl is not too bad, but when I see a guy kissing a guy, I don't like it.
I tried to draw a connection for her, saying things like, "But Grandma, don't you see you're doing the same thing to gay men as you did to my dad?" But being a 98-year-old Catholic Italian, I just don't think she got it. So I asked her what she would have done if my mom was gay.
Well, I don't know what I would do. She's not, so how could I give you that?
But then she said something along the lines of, maybe I'd get used to it. And that stood out to me.
Maybe in a way I would, but then like everything else, I would have got used to it like I got used to the black guy she was going with.
So I guess this entire time I was trying to get my grandma to tell me a story that wasn't true. I I wanted to hear that she had once hated, then loved, and learned, but that wasn't the story. The story is she allowed one person, despite her preconceived notion of them, into her heart. She let one person into her kitchen, her home, her family. She did this for the sake of her daughter and her soon-to-be grandchildren. In this process, she learned to accept. Now, I'm not saying after my mom married my dad, her mindset on everything changed, because clearly that's not true. What I am saying, however, is if we can get to know one person, give just one person a chance, it can be the start to a world completely different than we'd ever imagined for ourselves. A world where a 4'11", 98-year-old Italian grandma lives with a 6'3", 62-year-old African-American son-in-law.
Do you know what it is?
No.
It